Welcome to this explainer on an invisible weapon that is completely rewriting modern warfare and, believe it or not, our everyday lives. When we think about modern weapons, we usually picture things going boom, right? Gunpowder, missiles, artillery. But what we're looking at today doesn't use a single ounce of explosives. It relies entirely on invisible radio waves. It's designed to do something way more insidious. It manipulates reality itself. Just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about the power to rewrite the physical coordinates of the world around us in real time, and no one even sees it happening. So picture this. A brand new Tesla is cruising down a massive multi-lane highway right in the middle of Dubai. The driver is just following the GPS, but suddenly, the car's internal map insists they are off-roading deep in the Arabian desert. Crazy, right? Or how about a massive 300-meter commercial cargo ship whose navigation instruments swear it's currently parked dead in the center of dry land? Or commercial flights doing these impossible zigzags across international borders in a fraction of a second. These aren't just weird glitches or scenes from a sci-fi movie. These are bizarre, real-world anomalies happening right now, and they are completely baffling pilots, captains, and everyday drivers. Now, your first instinct is probably, oh, my phone's broken, or the app is crashing, right? But this is absolutely no software glitch. These massive geographical anomalies are the direct result of intentional GPS manipulation. It is literally an unseen tactic, an invisible weapon that's actively being used right now in Middle Eastern conflicts. Various nations and military groups, notably involving Israel, Iran, and the US, are actually deploying this technology to confuse and misdirect incoming threats. They're purposefully scrambling the digital maps of the sky and the ground. Okay, to really grasp how this invisible weapon actually works, we need to look up, like way up. Let's break down the mechanics of a process called trilateration. Right now, as we speak, there are 31 GPS satellites orbiting the Earth. And honestly, they really only do one main thing. They continuously beam down radio signals containing their exact, precise time. So your phone or your car receives that signal, calculates exactly how long it took to get there, and uses that to determine the distance to the satellite. Basically, 3 satellites create 3 overlapping virtual circles. And right where those 3 circles intersect, boom, that is your exact pinpoint location on Earth. Just think about this number for a second, 0.07 seconds, or 70 milliseconds. It literally takes longer to blink your eyes. Yet that is exactly how long it takes a radio signal, traveling at the actual speed of light, to reach your phone from a satellite 21,000 kilometers away in the vacuum of space. The precision required for this math to work is just absolutely staggering. Our entire global navigation system, literally everything that moves on this planet, relies on these microscopic, flawless fractions of time. And, well, that creates a massive vulnerability. Because if someone can mess with the time, they can absolutely mess with your location. Which brings us to the first and honestly most basic method of manipulation, GPS jamming. Think of jamming like walking into a super crowded, noisy room and just turning off all the lights. A transmitter on the ground basically blasts a really loud, incredibly noisy radio signal on standard civilian and military GPS frequencies. And because the real signals coming from 21,000 kilometers away are pretty faint by the time they reach Earth, it really doesn't take much raw power for this loud ground noise to just completely drown them out. It's basically a radio frequency shouting match, and the jammer wins, causing a total blackout. But there is a huge, fatal flaw here. When military drones or autonomous missiles suddenly go blind in the dark, they don't just politely hit the brakes and hover. They keep flying completely blindly, and without navigation, they can just veer totally off course and crash into entirely unintended targets, even civilian residential buildings. So jamming is really just brute force. But what is far more sophisticated and frankly a whole lot more terrifying is GPS spoofing. Instead of turning off the lights, spoofing is more like putting up fake signposts along the highway. A ground transmitter broadcasts a fake but perfectly valid GPS signal. It speaks the exact same digital language as the real satellites. Remember those microscopic time fractions we were just talking about? Well, if a spoofer intercepts a drone's receiver and alters that signal's timestamp by just a single millisecond, it completely rewrites the math. It tricks the receiving device into calculating that it's hundreds of kilometers away from its actual physical location, all while the device happily thinks everything is working perfectly normally. When we actually compare the two side by side, the unique danger of spoofing becomes so incredibly obvious. Jamming is a blunt instrument. It's just loud noise that creates a sudden blind spot, causing drones to lose their location entirely, panic, and crash unpredictably. But spoofing? Spoofing is an elegant deception. By feeding an autonomous drone a valid fake signal with an altered time, you aren't blinding it at all. You are smoothly hijacking its entire navigation system. You feed it coordinates that trick the drone into thinking it's just drifted a bit off course. So the drone's internal computer naturally tries to correct its path to get back on track. But by correcting itself against fake data, the drone smoothly and willingly misdirects itself right into a trap. Like safely touching down in a desert or an ocean, all while totally convinced it's heading home. Let's look at exactly how vulnerable autonomous machines are in the real world when faced with this kind of elegant deception. Back in December 2011, a highly classified U.S. RQ-170 stealth drone took off from a base in Afghanistan to conduct operations over Iran. But Iranian forces utilized sophisticated GPS spoofing to feed that drone fake coordinates. Suddenly, the drone's systems genuinely believed it was safely returning to its home base in Afghanistan, and it executed a perfect, fully automated landing procedure. But in reality, those spoofed coordinates meant it was landing completely intact, deep inside Iranian territory. The operators had basically pulled off a flawless digital heist, capturing one of the most advanced pieces of technology on Earth, all without firing a single shot. But here's the thing. This invisible war of data manipulation is no longer just confined to classified military drones or distant active battlefields. It has rapidly spilled over. What really started as a highly specialized tactic in places like Russia, Ukraine, Israel, and Iran is now severely impacting everyday civilian life across entire regions. The invisible shockwaves of these spoofing and jamming events are literally hitting the infrastructure that you and I rely on every single day. And this perfectly illustrates the real-world danger here. When these powerful spoofing signals flood public airspace, standard civilian infrastructure just breaks down completely. Commercial airline pilots flying hundreds of passengers are suddenly finding themselves in complete navigation blind spots. Crucially, a passenger plane's ground proximity warning system, the automated safety net that screams at a pilot if they're dangerously close to crashing into a mountain, relies entirely on GPS. If that system is fed spoofed data, the pilot gets absolutely no warning until it is way too late. We're seeing planes suddenly veer into restricted no-fly zones during super-sensitive takeoff or landing procedures because their instruments are straight up lying to them. And down on the ground, while you might just be mildly annoyed that your Uber Eats driver is somehow lost in a virtual river, entire logistics networks and rideshare apps are actually grinding to a total halt because the cellular networks have absolutely no idea where anyone actually is. Now, if physical navigation wasn't enough to worry about, consider this absolutely wild fact. GPS satellites don't just provide location, they actually house the world's most accurate atomic clocks. And as cybersecurity experts point out, if spoofing alters a timestamp, the entire stock market could crash. Think about it. Today's global financial markets and massive crypto trading bots execute thousands, sometimes millions, of trades in fractions of a single second. Every single one of those financial transactions requires a pristine, globally synchronized timestamp to be valid, and those timestamps are pulled directly from the atomic clocks on GPS satellites. If a massive spoofing event successfully alters that time data, it corrupts the entire chronological record of trades worldwide. The global financial system could literally crash in minutes, purely from a fake radio wave. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. Just take a moment to think about it. Who really wins when the wars of the future are fought with data manipulation instead of gunpowder? We have built the foundational pillars of our entire modern world, our global logistics, our aviation safety, our financial markets, on the back of invisible radio waves beaming down from the quiet vacuum of space. And as we've seen today, whoever controls the data inside those invisible waves ultimately controls reality on the ground. Thanks for diving into this with me. Stay curious and keep questioning the technology around you.